Hey there, everybody. Happy Wednesday to you all. Welcome to Take the Black Live. I am Kayla Magheramorne. Joining me is winteriscoming.net editor-in-chief Dan Selke, and we've got some more Season 8 spoilers, news, rumors, all that good stuff.
We do, here on Take the Black Live, available now on iTunes. We are here to talk about all things Game of Thrones, all things Song of Ice and Fire, and to say hello to everybody who's joining us. Hey, Julie. Hey, Emma. Hey, Diane. Omar, good to see you from California. Julie says good morning from Australia.
Good morning, Julie.
Where she is.
I actually didn't know what time it is in Australia, so that's good to know.
I mean, I knew that it couldn't be what it is here. It's
right.
4 p.m. here, but I didn't know exactly when. But good to know.
What's it like in the future? Are they ahead or
Or
behind?
the past.
Or the past. I'm going to stop talking about things I don't know. Okay.
But yeah, we have some juicy stuff to go over this week. As always, we're going to hit the latest goings-on from the set of Game of Thrones Season 8. And almost immediately after the show tuned off last time, there were some pretty big leaks.
Yes.
We are going to go over some spoiler-adjacent things. It's not really spoiler-tastic, but they are going to be... I think you can guess that people are going to die in the season. It's not like it's a huge revelation.
That is shocking news, Dan.
But they are going to be up-close pictures directly from the set, courtesy of a leaker on the very famous Free Folk Reddit, who goes by the handle Watchers on My Balls, which I guess I'm 8 years old because I'm laughing at that.
Same.
I'm sorry, it's just funny. But anyway, this person, who obviously works for HBO, because these pictures that they got are up close and personal. They're pictures from Magheramorne Quarry, which is where they're doing the bulk of their filming now. And by the way, thank you very much to GOT Locations and others who have told me how to pronounce that on Twitter. I really appreciate it, because I've been going through some existential crisis trying to find out how to say that.
And what did we decide it is? It's...
You heard me say it again.
Magheramorne.
It's Magheramorne.
Yes.
Is the way that the lady said it in the audio clip.
We were just putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Throwback. So thanks so much to GOT Locations for clearing that up. Without further ado, let's get into some of these pictures coming from the set at Magheramorne Quarry from this person who's clearly an employee. I even heard that
illegal
HBO...
for an employee to be leaking photos from set?
It is definitely against the contracts they sign, no question. I don't think it's illegal as in he's violating the law of Northern Ireland.
Okay, yes.
I mean, it might be, but he or she is most definitely, Watchers on My Balls is most definitely violating a non-disclosure agreement that they make all employees at HBO sign. But they took some great photos, and they're going to send them to us, or send them to the internet, Free Folk rather. We're going to look at some of them and see what we can find.
Wonderful.
Cue the first photo from Magheramorne Quarry. We see, okay, so what are we looking at here, Kayla? What do you think?
We are looking at just a bunch of dead bodies that are made out of plaster or something.
Yeah, like plastic. So I've been calling these corpse blobs. So basically what is on Magheramorne Quarry now is just piles and piles and piles and piles of dead corpse props.
It's really creepy.
Well, this is interesting because...
This isn't even the creepy one.
They do have, like, discrete bodies, but these are the corpse blobs. What they kind of are is just this mass of half bodies put onto a panel. And I think what'll happen with these is they're going to, like, lay them down on the ground, right?
Right.
They're going to dust them with fake snow, and they'll be in the background, so they'll just look like they're piles of dead bodies, even though they're not really separate corpse props. You know what I'm talking about?
Right, yes. This is the part of movie magic that I don't really like.
I think it's kind of fascinating, honestly. I mean, to think that, you know, once it's all over, this is going to look, I'm sure, very realistic and striking and interesting. But why don't you enjoy this part of movie magic?
Because it's fake. Not that I want real dead bodies in the scene, but, like, at least actors playing dead, you know?
That's what movies are.
I know.
Every single part of them.
But, like, that's actually fake.
It is very fake. I'll grant you that.
Okay.
I say embrace it. Everything you see on screen is a lie anyway. You might as well get used to it.
I just don't like to... I play dumb, Dan. I don't like to know...
Fair enough.
...the tricks behind the scenes.
Oh, Julie Davies, I have to read this comment, says they might take his balls for leaking.
Oh, Julie.
If they're really going to follow Game of Thrones rules,
well played.
Possibly. Oh, we're having fun. Okay. And Emma says, best name ever. I kind of agree. I feel like, again, I'm like 8 years old, but I can't help it. Let's look at another of this hero Redditor's images. We have an image of not actors, but maybe this is more appeals to you. It's not corpse blobs either. It's discrete dead body props.
This is definitely more lifelike, for
Kyle.
sure.
I mean, without being lifelike, because they're not real. They're made of plastic people. I mean, what's interesting here, though, is that what sigil do we see on the dead prop people's breastplates? That would be the
Was that a question?
It was.
Okay.
It's okay.
Sorry.
That would be the Kraken of Greyjoy. So these are Greyjoy soldiers. And that's interesting because of all the armies that we think are going to show up for this big battle, the Greyjoys weren't really among them, at least I wasn't expecting them. So here at this set, at Magheramorne Quarry, we've seen Unsullied extras, real people. We've seen Northern armies, we've seen the Dothraki, we've seen lots of zombie types, the dead, obviously.
Dead Dothraki.
Dead Dothraki too. Basically, what they're filming here are the discrete special effects parts of this giant living versus dead battle that you need a green screen for. So when it's done, they're going to film the Unsullied or the Dothraki or the whatever in front of a green screen, and then they're going to make it look like there are cajillions of them behind it. Is what is I'm basically guessing is going to happen. And it's all probably, by our best guess, going to go down at Winterfell in the north because of all the snow. And I didn't expect to see Greyjoy soldiers up there that soon, because right now the Greyjoys are what?
Sailing?
They are sailing. It's Euron Greyjoy. Last we saw him was going across the narrow sea to Essos to pick up the Golden Company for Cersei. So he's like nowhere near where this would happen. And Theon's going to chase him, try to free his sister. It's kind of like a whole subplot.
He's going to have his hero moment, and then he's probably going to die.
I probably agree with you, yeah.
This might be a dumb
I
question.
think that'll be satisfying.
Do you know if they film the episodes, each episode at a time, or
No.
do they just knock out all the battle scenes at this green screen and then...
They do not film in chronological order. That is for certain. I mean... They couldn't. With this kind of complicated thing, it's like, if you have one giant battle scene in the second episode, another one in the fifth episode, and you're all going to film at the same place.
Knock them all out.
What's that?
I said knock them all out.
Yeah, I mean, what's the use in booking this giant, expensive space for like a couple days, going elsewhere to another complicated set, and then coming back to do it again? Just do it while you're there. Like, it's already so expensive. They're not going to waste money and stuff like that. So they film out of order. But the fact that Greyjoy soldiers are there indicates this is probably going to happen later in the season, because we're going to have to resolve all that before they get on it. But very interesting indeed. Julie is loving these pics. I agree, these pictures are very fascinating, thanks to watchers on my balls. We got one more, an unfortunate pic. This is a little more sad, but again, not real.
I do not like this one.
But it's not real.
I know.
Not real.
But it's implying that something happens.
Yes, we have the pic of the, unfortunately, dead horses. Oh, so sad.
No horses were harmed in the filming of Game of Thrones.
Clearly,
so.
that's not a real horse. It's a fake horse. I mean, this show has...
I don't like horses dead in any capacity.
Animals dead is always horrible.
Yes.
Like direwolves dying is terrible.
Yes.
Even the dragon dying was very, very sad. And this show has done some mean things to horses over the years.
No kidding.
Chopping off the one's head in the first season. I think Dothraki
Could have done without that.
Cut a leg off one in the last season. It's nasty. But, I mean, it's true to life. When you ride horses into battle, they're not always going to...
Is it?
I mean, it's battle. Yes, it absolutely is. In a battle that involves horses, in a battle that involves cavalry, I mean, it's not just the people you're aiming for, unfortunately. So that's unfortunate, though. This will involve dead horses too, and there are more images where this comes from, by the way. So go check out Winter is Coming or the Free Folk Reddit, who make it their business to leak anything and everything, basically. If you didn't know that, there's a whole Reddit called Free Folk. It's just named after the wildlings. That's just dedicated to leaking things
of all Game of Thrones stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this before, but I do the same thing with Reality Steve and The Bachelor.
Sure.
There has to be someone on the inside on that show that's feeding him info. Just like there's someone feeding this person pictures.
Because remember, like 2 weeks ago, when we were looking at pictures taken from across the
So
bay.
far away, we had to,
and
like,
trying to figure
zoom
out
in
is who's
and
that?
see. Yeah.
And it ended up being like a guy with a smoke machine.
Right. We were trying to guess what would
Like, there's
that
a
might
big
be.
difference between that and this. Big difference.
I like these better.
I mean, these are certainly more clear. But whoever took these, watch my balls, should
We should have made this one a
watch
drinking
out.
game.
What's that?
We should have made this one a drinking game every time you say it.
We got to move on. Oh, and Carrie Jacobs, I always love hearing this. Nice beard. Thank you. Or, sorry, Jacobs' son. Carrie Jacobs' son.
My favorite comment to this day is when someone said, like winter, your beard is coming in. When you were starting to grow it out.
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, we're not drinking, but I feel like we're drinking right now.
How so?
I just feel happy and like
well,
we're
great,
laughing
Dan.
and having a pleasant time.
That's what the goal is
We have
each
to do that
time.
because I need to get drunk on the show again.
Okay.
Julie has a good question. Are we available on iTunes by any chance? Yes, we are
Julie.
available in podcast form, this show, on iTunes, Google Play. In all seriousness, if you could, look us up on iTunes, leave a good review and a good 5-star rating. It does help us get to more people. We'd appreciate it. All right, a couple other points of Game of Thrones news to hit before we bring on Josh Hill for our continuing segment, A Song of Dan and Josh, which is included in that iTunes bundle. We have some new casting news, courtesy of Watchers on the Wall, which is a fan site
Yes.
that also has some pretty good hookups. A young actress named Bronte Carmichael, which is a hell of a name, who is a child actress, is going to appear in Game of Thrones Season 8 as a character named Martha. She'll appear in episodes directed by Miguel Sapochnik, one of the go-to action directors, guy behind Battle of the Bastards.
He's doing
Hard
2
Home.
or 3 this season?
He's doing 2.
Okay.
Probably the 2 big actiony ones. I would bet good money he's the one on the set when all this is going down.
Wonderful.
I'd bet good money, but we're not entirely sure. She's pretty accomplished. Like, she's not an extra. So she's been in things like, that's her in Christopher Robin, an upcoming Disney movie about the Christopher Robin.
I love all the
Winnie
Christopher
Pooh.
Robin movies.
There's more than one?
Last of all, there was Goodbye Christopher Robin.
Oh,
The
right,
story
I
of how it
didn't
came
see
about, and now this one's just Christopher Robin when he's grown up, and that's his daughter and wife, I believe.
Yeah,
I did watch the
plays
trailer.
daughter. Did you? 'Cause
She's
I
a
did.
doll, yeah.
It's pretty adorable.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Like it's Winnie
Who
the
doesn't
Pooh,
love Winnie
like,
the Pooh?
comes up, and he sounded like he did when he was like a
Yes,
when
in
I was
the
a child.
cartoon, right.
Very, very adorable. The point is, she is a proper actress. She was also in Darkest Hour, which won some Oscars this
Yeah.
past year about Winston Churchill. So this is going to be a role for her. We don't know exactly what it is, but as far as we can tell, she's filling this casting call we heard about half a year ago. Why don't you read the casting call that we thought she
Did we
is?
read this?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure we did back in the day.
And I feel like I guessed. Okay, it says this character is 8 to 10 years old, was brought up in a family of soldiers, and displays dauntlessness and integrity. The role is said to be a very nice standout part for a strong-minded young girl with a fighting spirit. I feel like I guessed that it was like a flash forward to Cersei's unborn.
Oh, that's a good one. I mean,
Didn't I guess that last
love
fall? I feel like
that,
that's what I said, but I don't know. It's probably
I
very
love
off.
that take. For some reason, I'm thinking it's going to be a northerner. I swear to God that piece of information was put somewhere, but I can't find it here. It's possible, though. All bets are up. I'm betting it is just a northern girl who is going to be involved in the fight around Winterfell. But, I mean, if you have other ideas, let them rip. And finally, I want to announce we ran. I have no idea if you guys were aware of this, but on Wigner's Coin, we had a whole Game of Thrones March Madness tournament to dovetail. Who won the actual tournament, by the way?
Villanova
Villanova. Good for them.
beat Michigan on Monday night,
And-
79-62.
And in our Game of Thrones March Madness tournament, we pitted 64 characters against each other.
Great
After-
idea, Dan.
Did you happen to vote in any of them?
No, and I wish I missed the boat. Like
yeah,
I
you're
just
right. I should have told you, obviously.
passed that around the office. I would have played for sure. That stuff I think is so fun.
Would have been way smart. But yes, at the end of the day, Jon Snow was our March Madness victor.
That's shocking.
Yeah, it's kind of a predictable
just
result. He beat out Ygritte, he beat out Bran, Arya, Sansa, and then finally Tyrion. It was him and Tyrion up against each other in the final round.
Two of my
and
faves.
Jon edged him out.
Wow.
It was close-ish, but Jon beat him out.
I have a request for one of the coming episodes.
Bring it.
Can we get a wedding update on Kit Harington and Ygritte
I will do my
and
best.
Joe Jonas and Sansa?
I'll do my best. I do think that Kit Harington and Rose Leslie, who plays Ygritte, we're going to get married during the filming process, because when you set your date, you don't care what interferes with it. So I'll see.
Okay, thanks.
Beautiful. And if you have inside information, let us know.
I can do some digging as well. Happy to.
Excellent. I mean, I'm
was
sure
just
when it
curious.
happens, they'll announce it.
Yeah.
Like, she's like an old-fashioned British aristocrat blood kind of
Really?
person. I'm not going to quote anything
Is
specific.
he marrying into royalty?
No, she's not like royalty,
Oh.
but she's up on the ladder. They have more of those like ranks over in Great Britain. They care more
Right.
about that, I think. And
Social class.
So like they announced their engagement in like a fancy like periodical where those kind of things are announced to the world.
Wonder if they'll have a Game of Thrones reception.
I really doubt
themed
it.
reception.
The upswing of that is when it happens, I'm sure it'll be news. Like people
Yes.
will talk about it. It's not going to be like a quiet courthouse ceremony.
Of course.
So we'll look out. And without further ado, yes, people are excited that Jon Snow won. I was too. I was kind of hoping, I don't know, it's kind of the obvious pick.
Who were you going for?
Tyrion or Sansa or Arya, someone left at center.
I like both of them.
Jaime, could have gone with Jaime.
Oh.
Cersei was out quick, naturally.
Yeah.
But I think Sam took her down.
Shoot.
Anyway, any other thoughts before we bring on Josh Hill?
How quickly did blanking on my least favorite character's name?
Your least favorite character's name?
Yeah. The little brat.
Oh, Joffrey?
Yes.
Ramsay Bolton?
I was thinking Jamie, his son.
I think he was out in the first round.
Thank goodness. Or Ramsey.
Missandei beat him.
When did Ramsey go out? He's actually.
I don't think he was even on it.
You should do a villain
There's
ranking.
a lot of characters in the show, Kelly. We had to cut some people.
Oh, wow. Okay. 64 is a lot, but okay. Good to know. All right.
Thank
Dan,
you,
been a pleasure.
Okay, bon voyage.
See you guys next week.
We're going to bring on Josh Hill for our continuing segment, A Song of Dan and Josh, wherein Josh Hill and I read through chapters of A Song of Ice and Fire and just break them down, see how they work, dissect them. We're still on a Game of Thrones. I've read the books multiple times. Josh has never read the books multiple times. It's a clash of perspectives. It's fun. It's freaky. It's interesting. And it's available in audio form on iTunes and Google Play. If you could look it up, leave us a good review and a 5-star rating, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing good. And hi to everybody out there, Julie and Billy and somebody that was out there. I don't know who.
Oh,
God. I need some
Carrie,
names.
Emma,
Carrie and Emma. Hi.
Jay, Angie. Says that Ygritte's or Rose Leslie's father is a Scottish laird.
Ooh,
Not sure what that means, actually. I guess it's
not
like
either.
lord, laird.
maybe.
We Americans, I don't
We don't
understand
know
that
much.
kind of thing.
Is anybody reading the books with us? 'Cause that'd be cool.
Oh yeah.
Get some
Is
check-ins.
anybody out there watching, reading the books along with us? I'd be interested to hear that.
I wonder if they read the book while they're watching the show. That could work.
That would be a lot of work.
Yeah, but they're a talented fan base.
They are. They can do everything they want. Anyway, we're here to talk about Song of Ice and Fire.
Yep.
We read one chapter this week, Bran 5,
Yep.
which was full of incident.
Oh, yes.
First impressions, Josh. What hit you with this chapter?
The action was actually really
Right?
well
I
written.
thought so, too.
In this chapter, I really liked that. Theon, we got some more information on Theon, and kind of like the beginning of his downfall, you could say, or maybe not the beginning, more of an explanation of maybe why he decided to not be so loyal to the Starks when he turned on them.
Expound on that. What happened to Theon in this chapter?
So he actually saved Bran's life at one point
Yeah.
because the Wildings.
Yeah, so
show
Bran
up.
is riding through the Wolfswood. Gets separated from the group. He's accosted by Osha, who becomes a character, and a bunch of some wildlings, some Night's Watch deserters, and there's a scuffle, and one of the wildlings, one of the Night's Watch deserters, gets Bran in a headlock, a knife to his throat, and then Theon shoots an arrow right through his chest, but then Robb gives him some grief about it.
Yeah, surprisingly. It's like, thanks for saving my brother.
It was surprising?
I guess because we don't get into Robb's head at all, I guess
Yeah.
we don't really get the inner workings
That's a good
of
point,
what he's
yeah.
thinking about. But I would have thought maybe there would have been a moment, because like we were just in a couple of chapters with Catelyn and Tyrion where Catelyn very much wanted Tyrion dead, and they were kind of in a similar situation, and they bonded-ish, you could say, over it, and she kind of softened her stance on him. Whereas like this was, Robb was very masculine about it. He's like, oh, how, you put my brother in danger and this and that. It's like he saved his life too. So then maybe that could come back.
There's two sides to it. I mean, I did see Robb's point too. Like he gave a whole dressing down of like, look, if you were even a little bit off, you would have hurt Bran. Or what if the arrow hadn't killed the guy? He would have just killed Bran then. So Robb is a forward-thinking kind of guy. He's rising to the occasion and being the responsible one. Yeah. And Theon, we're getting to know him better. Like we get like he's the kind of guy who's going to shoot a person in the chest and not think about it first. Yeah. Which is the kind of person he is. Yeah. He's also the kind of person who we get bits of him like bragging about sleeping around the town and just bragging about it. He brags to Robb about that, and Robb's like, not in front of Bran. We get him. I think Robb also chooses him out because the reason they weren't with Bran is because Theon spied a turkey and just led the group around so he could hunt it, which is a little irresponsible of him.
A little bit, yeah.
But I mean, how was he to know that these people were going to accost Bran? There's no real villains except the people who tried to cut Bran's throat. So Theon's is being built up as a character here, which I find interesting because just knowing where he goes and knowing that everything is taken away from him. Like of all the characters, Theon might be the most changed by the end of the story. Like he's a brash, young, egotistical kind of jackass here, and he is utterly flipped after what he goes through. But that's far in the future.
Yeah, but the introduction to Theon I did enjoy, or the introduction to diving deeper into his character, I guess, was something that I enjoyed, and also little things like like the saddle. You had this in your notes too, like the saddle was designed by Tyrion, the one that Bran is riding, and just kind of like that relationship too. There's like these little nuggets every so often, especially, not to keep referencing it, but coming off of the couple of chapters with Catelyn and Tyrion, where we are kind of seeing his character softened up a little bit. And this is another reminder, Tyrion. Yeah. And this is another reminder of that, where it's like, yeah, he's this Lannister, these Lannisters are bad people, but also at the same time, he's got this, he kind of designed this saddle that Bran is riding, and Bran is kind of in his territory where it's like, Tyrion's an imp, and you've got Bran who is paraplegic. So they're misfits, they're outcasts in a world, and especially in a chapter where we have Bran who can't use his legs, is useless, almost gets killed because he can't defend himself. And at one point, brags about being rich when he's about to be robbed. Like,
well, I mean,
or brags about being a Stark, but
because he's trying to like make them afraid. Yeah, like, oh, the Starks are powerful. So I think I put down that he traded in the stupidity that is kind of part of his family. Yeah, where he's surrounded by these wildlings and Night's Watch deserters, and he's like, "Don't touch me, I'm a Stark." Yeah. And then in their heads, those like, "Oh, he's a Stark. We can take this kid hostage and sell him."
The Stark stupidity is what I wrote down. But yeah, so then you've got like Bran, and then juxtaposed against it, you have Theon, who is this like strapping, young, good-looking, cocky, opposite of what Bran is. And I don't know, I kind of like the way that George R. R. Martin kind of meshes these two themes together. It's like on the one hand, you've got Catelyn, who has gone through something traumatic and comes out on the other end, and then you have her sister, who has gone through something traumatic and is still drowning in the deep end.
Came out the worse for wear, I guess.
So we talk about his world building being fun with like throwing in exposition without being forced exposition. There's also kind of this character building where there is Bran is very much established as weak and unable to defend himself here, and now I'm worrying about him moving forward. And then you have Theon, who is very much established as this character who almost is juxtaposed against Robb too, who is more similar to Theon, but seems more straight and narrow than Theon, who seems to be more
cavalier, don't make hair kind of guy.
Yeah, he's more on like the Lannister side of the scale of being full of himself.
There was one line that like kind of pointed out like what the approach is to Theon. He smiled a lot as if the world were a secret joke that only he was clever enough to understand. Which is like, that's great. That's a good line. Just a good line about like, I instantly see that shit-eating grin he must have in his face all the time. Let's talk quickly about the action, because I was reading it and I did enjoy it a lot, like more than I had the past action scenes.
Yeah.
It's after, the wildlings are going to take Bran, but then Robb starts in on them. And there's just some good descriptions. The wolves get in on it. There's the dire wolf plunged in after him being one of the Night's Watchmen, and the white water turned red where they had vanished. Later, Summer was savaging Hallie, pulling glistening blue snakes from her belly. Her eyes were wide and staring. And finally, the guy who Theon shoots, Stiv, gave a choked gasp as a half-foot of razor-tipped broadhead suddenly exploded out of his chest. Just good, punchy action writing.
Yeah. I liked it, especially coming off the chapter with Ned kind of getting attacked, which was
kind of quick.
It was quick. It wasn't, I think it was still well written, but this very much stuck out to me, and I was drawn into the action a lot more than some of these other fights that we've read. But yeah, I quite enjoyed this chapter. There was a lot there. And also, word travels very fast in this book, as opposed to the show. So, because maybe I'm misremembering the show a little bit, but already we know that Ned has been attacked, and that happened
that was 2 chapters ago.
So,
and Robb has to kind of break this news to Bran. I also liked how Robb was hesitant to do it.
Yeah,
a theme that you will notice with Robb a lot, even though we're not in his head, but we'll see this again and again, is that he's a young guy. He's 15. Remember in the books again, middle schooler, or I guess high school by this point, fresh. He's a high school freshman.
Yeah.
And he's running a household, and he's always oscillating between, I'm the head of this household, I'm very important, I make decisions, I'm running the place, but also being a scared, kind of out of his depth, out of his element 15-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And we see that, and they always juxtapose it. There's a continuing theme where he'll be he looks scared and like a child, then he put on the crown and he becomes a king, that kind of thing. Which again kind of goes back to you play different roles depending on what you have to do, even what you wear. And in this situation, he's trying to tell Bran about what happened to Ned, and he says, "I never know how much to tell you, Bran. I wish you were older."
Yeah.
So he wants to talk, but he can't quite find a way to do it, and that's that's a younger thing. He's not sure. He's not sure how to communicate. But then later, Robb the Lord, and I quote that, is thinking about calling the banners and attacking the Lannisters to revenge Ned being attacked on the streets of King's Landing. So he's a character caught between these two poles, and you have to wonder if we were in his head, what that would be like. But we never are. So.
And that was something that I wrote down. Is I really wish we would at some point get into Robb's head, just because he does seem like such a fascinating character. And it seems odd to me that I don't know how many of these characters we meet we eventually get inside of their heads. Do we go and decide with Theon?
Theon we do. Yeah, okay. We will get eventually, not in this book.
I was hoping so. But the idea that Robb isn't involved in these chapters, he's removed almost. It seems strange to me. And I'm trying to figure out if maybe there's a deeper meaning or some kind of deeper theme for Robb being divorced from everything else that's going on. Why is he the outsider? I don't know. It's interesting to me.
I have an answer to that. I think the answer. Well, Julie says that Robb had to grow up faster than he expected, which I think is completely true. Which is why he has this. He hasn't quite grown into his authoritarian thing yet. I mean, the reason that we don't get into his head is I think George R. R. Martin knew he was going to die at the Red Wedding eventually. So he's like, do I need both Catelyn and Robb to get inside their heads so we can lose one important character? He knew Robb was going to die, so he didn't bother getting in his head. And it stands out more on the show because you can see his face.
Yeah.
And he became a bigger character there. But George R. R. Martin has said that one of his biggest regrets is not giving Robb point of view chapters.
That would have been, I feel like the Red Wedding would have been even more powerful.
Right.
Because, you want to talk about when it happened on the show, it was so shocking because you're murdering all of these main characters. That from a literary sense, that would have been interesting because you are establishing these characters. You have built them up inside of his head. And then not one, but two are gone in a span of that.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I guess the only hard part would be who do you tell? I don't know. I guess I don't know.
I mean,
the perspective of that chapter.
We'll get there when we get there. But obviously, we don't hear from Robb's perspective.
Yeah.
and we hear it from Catelyn's. Who
Yeah, so that would have
is
been
a
hard to be like,
character
who do you choose to tell the perspective from?
and
maybe
now
it could be
he
like
doesn't have to choose in this situation.
could have
It's
been like
easier.
the action movie. You know, you blow up a building and you show it from 6 different angles. Just the
Yeah,
same
God.
chapter over and over and over. The Red Wedding book. It's the Red Wedding from every single angle, from every single person
That sounds
in the room.
horrible. I would hate that.
Torture.
Not just because it's painful, because it's like it's horribly inefficient.
Oh, yeah.
Like one of the things I love about the first book and the first kind of 3 books really is that he is pretty efficient.
Yeah.
Like this chapter, the plot didn't advance a ton, but we do get new things going on. We
Oh,
do
yeah.
learn a lot of new information. It wasn't wasted ink.
No.
And again, I keep teasing this. I feel like in the later books, it just slows down such a crawl, and it is. You could have snipped things and been fine, George R. R. Martin. But I'm not a writer, so you do what you want.
I do know that. I mean, I've heard people talking about the book in the office at some point. I forget when somebody told me this, but I guess is there a chapter where we meet somebody on like a mountain or something, and like we never meet them ever again? It was something
couple
like
of chapters like
yeah. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I mean, we'll get there when we get there.
That doesn't seem
let's talk about
efficient.
this chapter. Well, okay, fine. I'm gonna do this. Like, look, I mean, there are things you can do. That there's like a fun, interesting side story that kind of adds context and adds mood or tone or whatever. And there's just writing everything you can because you're allowed to do it, and not deciding, okay, how much is necessary to establish the tone I want and how much can be cut.
Yeah.
Like there are little dalliances in the first 3 books, but if it comes like every once in a while, it's okay. It's like flavor. It's like you
Okay,
can
yeah.
spice the gumbo a little bit.
Yeah.
If the gumbo is all spice, then it's
Yeah.
not gumbo. It's a pile of spice. This isn't a perfect metaphor, but the
No.
point is, I think that there's a way to do side stories well and a way to overdo it. I think he does them well in the first 3 books, and maybe he overdoes it a pinch again.
There you go.
In this last 2, but that's in the future.
I'm looking forward to the future books. I know you're kind of preparing me for them to be a little bit more disappointing, but it's like, I
I
like
am
watching the
too.
bad James Bond movies too, because they're
that's a good
just
point.
it's part of the
They're
the
not
story,
bad. I
so-
want to make that very clear. I do not think the last 2 books are bad. I like them very much, but I do think they have more problems. But let's talk more about the Bran
Bran
chapter.
5.
Okay, I also wanted to highlight something that we can forget about the main characters in this book a lot of the time, especially the Starks, the Lannisters, the Greyjoys, everybody, is that they are all members of Westeros's super rich, super elite,
Yep.
just high class
High
people.
society, yeah.
Like Bran, right? Like the Starks are underdogs in the story,
Yep.
which is true. I mean, Ned gets killed. Catelyn and Robb get killed. Sansa gets like beaten and raped and passed from other people to other people. Arya has to be on the run. They're underdogs. At the same time, let's not forget that they are like nobility.
Yeah.
And here, Bran ran into terrible, terrible luck. He is paraplegic at the age of 10. It's awful, or 9 or whatever he is. But when he goes out in this chapter on a specially trained horse, accompanied by Robb, Theon, 4 guardsmen, 2 direwolves, a stable boy, and Maester Luwin, who just, for some reason, I think it's can be easy to forget that these people are very, very privileged, and,
Yeah.
and that we don't really have many like peasant narratives in the book.
No.
Like none of the point of view characters really are the ground level people. Like Davos, kind of, he was a peasant, and he grew up and he became a lord, but even he is up there.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to keep in mind. And George R. R. Martin is aware of that and does highlight it. Like I like this moment where after the wildlings and the Night's Watchman accost Bran, who's alone, he writes that Bran was suddenly conscious of how richly he was dressed. The man's clothes were filthy, fallen almost to pieces, patched here and there with blue and there with a dark green, and faded everywhere to gray, and once that cloak might have been black. So I think it's that George R. R. Martin does a good job of keeping kind of class distinctions a part of his story and weaving them into the story in an interesting, believable, kind of meaningful way.
Yeah.
That would actually do affect things.
Yeah. I agree. And I just, with Bran and this idea that he's the underdog and the Starks are the underdog, it reminded me a lot of...
Which they are. I mean,
They are.
I'm
And it reminded
Not saying
me,
they're not.
I kept going back to the Ned chapters where it's like, Ned is our main-ish character, and he is this underdog in this world that is so much larger than him in King's Landing. But he fits in because he is nobility. He is high society. Exactly. So it's weird to think of him as this kind of sleuth who's going around trying to figure out this mystery. But it's like he's almost playing with house money because the reason he's running around is because he's there because his best friend is king. Yeah. Like and he's head of his house in the north. Like, it is an interesting way to kind of spin things and have this like stark privilege almost of all of these characters. It's like bad things happening to good people, but then at the same time, it doesn't make the bad things happening to them somehow justified. Like Bran being a paraplegic is still a bad. It gives you almost a rooting interest in these high society types that you maybe otherwise wouldn't. Like the Lannisters, the most interesting and sympathetic Lannister is Tyrion because he's the imp. He isn't like everybody else, and there's a rooting interest there. And then it becomes Jaime later on because this redemption arc that he wants to go on. And
even Cersei, when she gets paraded through the streets naked, is pretty brutal in the books and the show.
Yeah, so it's this kind of deconstruction almost of these really rich high society characters down to almost like this peasant level. Like Cersei getting marched through the streets naked is this peasant level thing, and it's kind of nice to level them off there. They're not infinitely powerful or infinitely everything. It's that they come crashing back down, and it almost humanizes them. And then it's up to them, like Cersei, to go back and make us not think of them as human. But
yeah, like Martin always, I mean, he makes sure that his characters have ups and downs. I mean, Theon too, obviously, a rich, privileged person, but I mean, he gets brought really, 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 really low. I always found it kind of interesting. I wondered why or if it was a conscious choice, or what it would be like if we had the perspective of someone who was just like a person, just like someone living in a town. But I guess maybe they wouldn't affect the narrative. Like the show added in, I don't know if you remember her, this prostitute character named Roz, who was like this redheaded, who is not in the books at all, as just like kind of our ground level perspective, and then she ends up dying after Joffrey kills her because that's what he does.
It would have been interesting maybe to have a chapter from like an outsider, like a peasant character, just to be like, how much does this game matter in the long run, in the context of everybody else's life? It's almost like, House of Cards. It's like we can get involved in this political high thriller society thing, but it's like, how much does it matter to the voter in Alabama? Like that's Cersei and this whole Ned mystery, and Ned and that death and him getting killed. How much does that matter to somebody who is up in the north in a village outside of some all the way up in the north? Doesn't really matter to them. So that to me, or Winterfell, that's what I was trying to think of. Winterfell. I was going to say Westeros.
Fair enough. I gotcha.
How much does that matter to them? But maybe that takes it out a little bit from this political thriller, but maybe it could also focus into the end game of the White Walkers, where it's like everybody, because that's kind of what's so thrilling about the show. Everybody's so interested in the game for the throne. And it's like, yeah, but the White Walkers at the end of the day are just going to kill everybody, or theoretically could, but that's a lot if we're not going to write side chapters.
I was just going to say that, like, I'm complaining about this, like, what do I want? More people who don't really matter to the narrative? He can't please us. He can't please me, I guess.
I'm very pleased.
I love you, George R. R. Martin. You're so difficult.
This is like going back. This is going back and putting extra syrup on the ice cream. It's like, I already have the syrup. I want more, though. Yeah, the Bugs Bunny socks. So
they're intense. Also, before we end, really quick, new character here, Osha the Wildling.
Yep.
Do you recall her from the show?
I do. She's kind of like Bran's, I don't want to say handler in a way, but like his wildling friend.
Yeah, his wildling buddy.
I remember the scenes with, I believe it was Bran, Hodor, and Osha are kind of all grouped up at some point. And Osha is almost like the bridge between what's beyond the wall and...
Because she lived there at one point.
Yeah, and like everything that's happening here. So it's like that, again, the juxtaposition of Bran has kind of been told and been afraid of everything that's outside of Winterfell. And then here's Osha, who is very far outside of Winterfell, and she's not a bad character.
Yeah, and she can humanize wildlings. She can... kind of provide Bran with more perspective, which it's his journey at the end of the day, so he's going to need that. Did you like her here? I mean, she was attacking Robb with, I also liked this line, blah, blah, blah. Her long spear was a steel-headed serpent, which is also some fun, again, good fight imagery.
Yeah. It was an interesting introduction. I guess knowing where her character goes, I was a little bit more,
Sure.
I guess,
Accommodating,
sympathetic and
ameliorative.
empathetic into her position. But yeah,
Ooh, J. Angie says, Bran's nanny, which
Bran's nanny. That's
kind
good.
of a reductive way of saying it, but sure, we can go with that. And Josh, any other thoughts about this chapter?
No, it was good. The
solid.
very well written fight sequence. It was one of the better ones that I've read.
Kind of weird because like it wasn't a terribly important one.
No.
Like in terms of the overall arc, but we'll see it. Next week, I think we should read 2. I think we got a quick, a Tyrion one, and then a quick Ned one.
Okay.
Let's do that. Reconvene here at 4 p.m. next Wednesday on the Winter Spring Facebook page for more Take the Black Live, more Game of Thrones news, more Song of Ice and Fire news, more A Song of Dan and Josh. And just one more reminder, we are on iTunes and Google Play as a podcast. If you could download, subscribe, rate 5 stars, give a positive review, we would appreciate it. Otherwise, we'll see you back here at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time next Wednesday on the Facebook page. Thanks so much for watching, everybody.
Thank you.